हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल ये आपका ही है. Good afternoon, everyone. So, because the three eminent panelists are visible, so I have come to the visibility here. Okay. Yeah. Little bit. Little bit. Okay. Little bit. Yeah. So, they don't need introduction, but to provide context to the discussion, we'll have brief introduction about them. So, to my left to right. So, Bishow Parajuli sir is a veteran United Nations official who has worked across the world in different capacities, including United Nations Food for Development Program. And I have Vikas Swarup sir, who is known for Slumdog Millionaire. But apart from that, he has been a fantastic ambassador of India. And we have Ranjit Rai sir, who is a writer now, has been an ambassador to Nepal. So all these three distinguished personalities, having worked around the world, bring their own perspective to diplomacy and to foreign policy. And now, in their retired capacity, they not only have become more forthright and they don't represent governments. So we are more in a position to listen more candid conversation and perhaps road ahead how we can think about it. So before we start, the general question is today's session is all about talking about development, diplomacy in the age of digital transformation, or something like in the age of AI. So, how digital age is redefining, challenging, creating opportunities for the diplomatic field and people like them who have been in the diplomatic field for a long period of time. So question number one, we have to start in such a way to understand what is diplomacy, how is it changing, and how does it matter? Because diplomacy mostly happens either in Kathmandu or in Delhi. Does it happen in Kolkata, in Chennai? Does it happen elsewhere? Has it been democratized? More people participating it. So the new term came public diplomacy, citizen diplomacy. Now people are talking about open diplomacy. So digital diplomacy, public diplomacy, open diplomacy. So for what does that mean? That each citizen, each person of that country has a say in the diplomacy, which earlier was considered as the exclusive work of a hallowed building in the South Block of India, in the context of India. So now, without going into what other questions you have in mind, detailed questions, so the questions I will have to three of them to understand the what role people can play in democracy, people democracy, public diplomacy. That is one question. Second, how technology is enabling governments to tap to the capacity of people to work for their country, represent their country, be part of their diplomatic initiatives. So first question is how public diplomacy is shaping, and how do you think from your time onwards and now your successors, like people who are younger to you now in the diplomatic field, do you feel that facing the challenge or it is an opportunity for them in the public diplomacy? Over to Ranjit Rai, sir. We'll start from that way.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, I've spent, say, more than 3 decades as a diplomat. And for me, the most important thing for a diplomat to be effective is to be credible. And so, in order to be credible, you have to be honest. You have to be transparent. You might couch your message in a diplomatic and a polite way, but the message should be clear. So, people who say a diplomat is sent abroad to lie for his country and so on, I think that's all rubbish. Because now, with this influence of the IT and AI and social media, you'll be caught, you'll be found out very easily. So I think credibility is absolutely critical. Number two, people are the basis. After all, what are governments trying to do? Governments are trying to improve the lot and the lives of their people. And what is diplomacy? It is about two countries, two governments, and two peoples working together to improve the common good. So the people are the center of diplomacy, especially today. Gone are the days of imperial powers when you sit in a drawing room and you decide the boundaries of countries. Today, the people are directly involved. And given, today you have cell phones, you have AI, you have social media, you have everything You can ask Google anything you want. So today, I think the people are much more aware, and the people can very forcefully make their opinions heard by governments. And a government that doesn't listen to the voice of the people is a government at peril. And we've seen what happened in Bangladesh, for instance. We've seen what happened in Nepal in 2006. So I think the people are the center of anything that governments are trying to do. Of course, I want to add one caveat. When you talk about diplomacy, relationship between governments, what does it mean? When you say you talk about two governments, it's the people in the two governments. They are the ones who interact with each other. So there's a huge human element to this interaction. And there are egos involved. Of course, there are issues and interests. That's fundamental. But when you're negotiating with another government, it's, after all, don't forget there are two individuals. So there are egos, there are perceptions, personalities. There's a lot that is involved. And there are sensitivities. Because publicly, as a government, you may have taken a certain position. And in the process of negotiation with another government, you may have to somewhat dilute that position or resile from that position. And this cannot be made public immediately. It has to be made public in a certain manner, because otherwise it might jeopardize the entire negotiation that you're having. So while I'm all for transparency, it's a thin line, and you have to be very careful. Very sensitive issues that involve matters of, interest, of the face of the country, and so on. Obviously, some of it has to be conducted in behind closed doors. But having said that, on balance, I feel that we have to be much more open, transparent, people-centric, and brief the people accordingly. These days there's a lot of spin to diplomacy. Every leader, have you ever seen any visit that has not been successful? Any leader makes a visit to any country, oh, fantastic visit, we discussed this, that, and the other. So, I think there is a lot of spin also, and that obviously is a function of, domestic political interests or your international stature. There could be many, many issues. But I really think that in this day and age, spin will only work to a certain extent, because you have open source information, you have information from the other country. So it's this, I come back to the point of credibility. I think Vikas has been our spokesman, and he's headed our external publicity division. So perhaps he has probably much more experience in terms of public diplomacy.
Thank you, sir, so much. Before I come to Ambassador Vikas Swarup, sir, I asked ChatGPT AI, what can I ask Ambassador Ranjit Roy on diplomacy? ChatGPT says, as a former ambassador to Nepal, how did public diplomacy help in strengthening India-Nepal relationship? As a distinguished diplomat, what is your experience in finding out whether any specific cultural or community engagement strategies that you actually employed, which made India-Nepal strategy effective?
Well, I think public diplomacy played or people-oriented diplomacy played a huge role, not only in Nepal, but also in terms of India-Nepal relations. Not necessarily always in a positive way, because my tenure was at a very, very difficult time in Nepal, when there was a lot of turmoil. Your constitution was being written. The earthquake had happened. Then you had the agitations in the Tarai. And of course, the social media was extremely active. Incidentally, I must confess, in those days, I stopped looking at social media because we were getting a lot of brickbats. So it is very powerful, and it can work, I guess, in both ways. It can also really pressurize your government to do certain things. It's absolutely a critical tool, and it has to be used properly. And one of the reasons I wrote this book, was to clear these misconceptions about India or Indian policy. There are misconceptions, prejudices, preconceived notions on both sides. Even though we are so closely interlinked, there are a lot of prejudices, and there's a lack of awareness of what's happening in each country. And one of the reasons also was to clear this another colleague of mine has written something called fog of understanding. So to clear this fog of understanding. And, social media is also, it can be quite dangerous too, because, if you have, you can have certain notions or prejudices that are consolidated and further strengthened to the detriment of the relationship. And then for governments, it becomes very difficult to counter that kind of narrative. So, it's a very important, very sensitive tool.
Just for everyone's information, Ambassador Ranjit Roy wrote a fantastic book, Kathmandu Dilemma, Resetting India-Nepal Ties, which is part memoir and part his lived experience as an ambassador in this beautiful country. And he continues to be one of the greatest advocates of India-Nepal strong ties. Over to Vikas, sir. I also asked the same question to ChatGPT. What can I ask Ambassador Vikas Swarup? Because they're talking about public diplomacy. Then ChatGPT says, as a former spokesperson of Ministry of External Affairs, as someone who has been a cultural ambassador, who has taken India's message to the world, what challenges and opportunities you saw in public diplomacy engagement, including the digital tools?
So Ambassador Ranjit Ray said that he stopped looking at social media messages, when he was ambassador here. I could not ignore those messages because I was Joint Secretary XP. I was the official spokesperson, and my inbox used to be flooded with very angry messages from Nepal. So see, public diplomacy has evolved over the years, but public diplomacy has been with us much before the digital age.
Right.
Because you see, public diplomacy is a facet of soft power. Hard power depends on coercion. You have a strong military, you have a strong economy, you pressurize the other country into doing what you want them to do, and that is called hard power. But soft power depends on influence, that you change the behavior of the other side, not by pressurizing them through military power, but by the power of your ideas, by the power of your ideals, by the power of your developmental work. You create a positive, a fuzzy, warm image of yourself in that particular country through your actions. And in that sense, public diplomacy has been with us. In fact, India was one of the first practitioners of public diplomacy, because our very first external aid program was called the Indian Aid Mission to Nepal, IAM,
Yes.
and that was launched in 1952. That is 9 years before US aid was even set up. And then one of our first military academies was the Imperial Military Academy in Harar in Ethiopia, which trained not only Ethiopian military officers, but a lot of the other African military officers. So that was, it was in 1958. India had just become independent, and yet we had the internationalist idea that, our capabilities are not just for ourselves, but for the benefit of others as well. And let's not forget that we set up the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program, the ITEC program, in 1964. Now, in 1964, India itself was, not in a very good position economically. We were dependent on PL 480 shipments from the US. We were dependent on food aid from other countries. I'm sure our colleague from WFP would be aware of that. And yet, we said, no, we have to share whatever we have, whatever limited we have, we will share. And we set up the Indian Technical and Economic Cooperation Program in 1964. So public diplomacy has been with us for a very long time. But now the format of public diplomacy has changed completely. Because earlier, even when there was the Indian Aid Mission to Nepal, when we had the ITEC program, how did we inform you? There was a cyclo-style note that was given out to the media that this is what the Indian government has done. Now, please publish this in your newspaper and let the people of your country be aware that this is what India is doing. So it was a one-way communication. We were basically telling you what we have done. We were not hearing you at all in this aspect. That has changed in the digital age. The government of India, the very first ministry which latched onto the digital age was the Ministry of External Affairs. The very first tweet that was issued by a Government of India department was by the Public Diplomacy Division of the Government of India on the 8th of July, 2010.
Okay.
And many people did not even know. The tweet just said, this is the public diplomacy account of the Ministry of External Affairs. That's all. And people were clueless. They said, what is this? India government is on Twitter. What does it mean? Can we now talk to the government? Can we also complain to the government? Can we put forward our grievances? It was a whole new ball game because the government of India itself was not very clear. What are we supposed to do? And it was through a process of trial and error that I think we got into the game. We realized, as Ambassador Ranjit Ray said, the most important thing is in public diplomacy in the digital age, there has to be two-way communication. The era of cyclo-style notes is gone. The era of press releases is gone. Now, if you put out a tweet, you open yourself to a counter tweet from the other party saying, this is nonsense, this is not how it is done, this is how it was actually done. So you have to be open to criticism as well, and you have to respond to that. And I would like to point out that our external affairs minister, former external affairs minister, Srimati Sushma Swaraj,
Yes.
she really mastered the art of public diplomacy, because her Twitter handle became not just a window into India's external relations with foreign countries. It really became a window into how to help Indians in distress. So she eventually amassed about 13 million followers on Twitter.
Yep.
And every day, she told me herself, she says, Vikas, every day from 8 p.m. till about midnight, I just sit on Twitter and I see all the messages that are coming to me.
Yes.
And there she sees there's a young girl in Germany, in Berlin, who has just lost her passport. And she's saying, ma'am, I do not know what to do, please help me. And she immediately picks up the phone, calls up the Indian ambassador in Germany and says, there's this girl, she has lost her passport. Tomorrow, first thing in the morning, I want you to call her. This is her number, and issue her a new passport. I mean, it went to ridiculous lengths, because at one time in Sudan, there was a civil war happening in South Sudan, in Juba. And one woman from India tweeted to her saying that there is a civil war, the market is closed, my father is diabetic, he cannot get his insulin medication. Please, can you get him his insulin medication? Otherwise, he might die. And she called up the Indian ambassador in Juba and said, I don't know how you arrange it. Arrange an insulin medication, go to this place, deliver it to that person. So matter reached a point.
Incredible.
Yeah, matters reached a point where one person even tweeted to her, Madam, my Samsung refrigerator has stopped working. Can you please fix this? And she says, I'm very sorry. I am very busy helping humans in distress. I cannot service your refrigerator.
Maybe another call to Samsung in South Korea.
So this is how digital diplomacy has actually impacted. It has become a two-way communication. You have to be much more responsive and more important. You see, in the past, we had the luxury of time. Something has happened. You need not tell the world about it maybe after 1 week.
And respond.
Exactly. Now you have to respond within 30 seconds.
As it is.
Forget about 3 days or 30 days. You have to respond within 30 seconds. Anything has happened.
Real time.
Pakistan has made a statement against us in the UN. We have to now not wait for a press release. We have to just respond immediately that this is the wrong perspective, this is the right perspective.
Yes.
So diplomacy has become immediate. And the problem with that is, how do you take a very complex political issue and put it into 240 or 280 characters?
Yes, yes.
You know, diplomacy in the digital age, or diplomacy, is also fraught. That is why with risk, because by reducing a very complex issue into just a few sentences, you can
and that too quickly,
and that too immediately. That's also virtually immediately. So I think diplomats have to really think on their feet. They do not have the luxury of time. They have the advantage, of course, that their message can be heard instantly, but also they have the disadvantage that the message can be twisted, or they themselves have not put out the correct message.
Yes. And that can also, in a way, jeopardize their career and also nation's prestige at the international level.
There are so many cases of people have lost their jobs on the basis of a tweet.
Within the MEA.
Well, not within MEA, but certainly, yes.
Around the world.
People have lost their job of that particular designation and said, now you're shifted to another place because you didn't know how to handle the public.
That was a skill challenge. So, but yeah, taking forward the discussion on ambassadors' role in engaging people where they work, in the foreign ministry's role engaging at a global level, coming back to an organization which actually works in all 193, 200 countries. And something like United Nations Food Program is the largest program that reaches out to all people in emergency and crisis also. So what is about the crisis communication? That is one. Second, what challenges that United Nations is facing, given the allegation also of United Nations not managing many crises well and being subdued by United Nations Security Council considerations. So UN is, as a body, gets both respect as well as big bats both. So how people in United Nations are trained to handle crisis management, especially in a disaster situation or food situation?
Yeah, thank you very much. So wonderful to be here, and after hearing these two distinguished diplomats. I'm on the other side. I work with the member states. I was for 40 years with the UN system. I was representing Secretary General, UN Secretary General. I was representing UNDP. I was representing World Food Program. So I've been involved all these years in development and humanitarian areas. In fact, from the year I started 40 years back to now, it has changed so much. We used to work on telegraph, foodagram, and used to take weeks to get messages and communication, and you try to minimize words. Very slow process. I think from that angle, from that time to now, it's a major sort of lightning shift. And it's a huge opportunity, frankly speaking, in terms of crisis, responding to crisis in multiple ways. One is bringing awareness to the world that we have this crisis situation. People are dying of hunger, flood, starvation, earthquake, whatever, and then bring their plight in television or photos. I mean, we are often first responders working with member states. That's number one. Number two is, a lot of situation like this, we don't have the resources. You need to mobilize resources. So voluntarily funded organizations, World Food Program is 100% voluntary funded organization. So to mobilize resources, we have to work with multiple governments and share that you are there, you're able to respond, and you will be accountable, and you are trustworthy. The messages you heard, all that. In fact, my last posting was WFP representative in India. I work very closely with the government of India, and we managed to bring a relation between India and World Food Program to help Afghanistan in crisis. So India provided, although with the Taliban government, they didn't want to work together, but they were concerned with the plight of people in that country. So they didn't want to forget that. And then, so we were there, we had the capacity, we showed our strengths and delivery and accountability, logistics setup, and they were confident about it. And we worked very closely. And we delivered to the people of Afghanistan saying, this is coming from the people of India, and to save lives and all that. So this is how one needs to work. So, it's a shared glory, shared accountability, being transparent, accountable, and making sure that what you say, you are delivered. The element of trust building, element of respectfulness, confidently doing, and also having a capacity is very important. So these are the different ways we work on. At times, the development programs are a slow process where it takes a bit of a time, and it's not life-threatening, but crisis situation. Now look at it in Sudan. People are dying of starvation. 21st century. Army, the militia fighting, and then there is no access. So WFP is negotiating. Gaza, Palestine, look at what's happening. Incredible situation. People, we can deliver, but we are not allowed to reach and deliver. The largest number of deaths has happened in that country. So the digital tools like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they are fantastic opportunities. But of course, we as a staff, and as you heard, we also need to follow a code of conduct. How do you message respectfully? How do you not offend the other side?
The other
These are
government,
very
other
important.
government.
And you use multiple sources and multiple channels. That's why you need competent officers, experienced officers to manage, lead that process. In fact, in the past, we used to have like only few communication officers. Now, every country has communication is the spokesperson, but support from your technical team and etc. So I think it's a huge opportunity at the moment, and UN, we work on diplomacy. And it's a part of the deal.
Right. Thank you. Former Secretary, United States Secretary of State, John Kerry said, digital diplomacy as a term is redundant. It is simply diplomacy. It is no more the fringe. For example, to take an example of business, in business, corporate social responsibility is a fringe activity. Now, because of government law, it is the strategic boardroom activity, central to business developments and business operations. So that way, digital diplomacy is no more another wing of diplomacy. It teaches diplomacy. So now the mainstreaming of digital being part of diplomacy, how diplomacy can be used or leveraged for development. Our initial topic was this, development and diplomacy in the age of digital. So now coming back to Ranjit Rai, sir, do you have any example, for example, some example Vikas sir shared regarding um, uh, what difficulty they had in communicating certain things at a quick time. So Ranjit Rai, sir, in your duration of tenure, did you come across anyone contributing to you and suggesting you, sir, part of the discussion India Nepal can be done this way, or we are available for a discussion? Have you given that space to some people who came through, not through formal channel of communication, which is through MEA, through government, but non-government channels of communication, where you have integrated them in your discussion about Nepal India ties and Nepal India relationship?
Oh, absolutely. And there can be no diplomacy if you do if you only talk to the government, not to the civil society, the youth, the media, the think tanks. I don't think you're doing your job properly. And we can see when governments are quite misled by only limiting their conversation with the government with the host government. So obviously you have to reach out. The business community, I forgot to mention, absolutely critical. One downside of this social media is that, as Vikas was saying, everything is instantaneous. And the magnitude is so huge that, you'll probably need a couple of people just to handle that. And so when do you do your thinking and strategizing and looking at slightly longer term issues, so you're virtually then dealing just day to day. So I think that is one aspect, and I don't know how that can be tackled on digital
Engagement
and development. I want to say something. See, in India, this digital public infrastructure is, I think, one of the most dramatic developments.
Yep.
You can go anywhere. You can go to a pan wala, sabzi wala, anyone, and pay with your phone. Everybody has a QR code. Everybody has a mobile phone. You don't need to carry any cash, and you don't need to carry any cards. I go to Switzerland every year. In Switzerland, the system does not exist. It does not exist in the USA. You have to have your plastic credit card or debit card in order to pay. In India, you don't. In fact, there's a joke that even beggars now have their QR codes, and they say that, you say, mere paas paise nahi hai. They say, nahi, is pe Paytm kar dijiye. So, this is such a, and the best news that has come out in recent days from Nepal and India is the fact that now there is going to be seamless connectivity between the digital public infrastructure in India and in Nepal.
Yes.
And I think that will make lives
Easier.
so much easier for the people of the two countries. I mean, today you have to go to India for some medical treatment. It's difficult to get rupees from the bank. Now you won't need that, because from your phone itself, you'll be able to pay.
Right.
So I think, the full implications of this are still unfolding. And I'm delighted that now this digital framework is becoming a very essential aspect of the bilateral relationships between the two countries.
And just to add one point to Ambassador Roy, big economic developed economies like America, Australia. I was just Australia 7 days ago. We don't find what we find in India. Phone Pay, Paytm, Google Pay integrated into one UPI, and you can pay anywhere. And that is not because American bureaucrats are saying it will take time for us to develop what India has developed. So they will take not necessarily 1 year, few years to develop that technological infrastructure. So I think Nepal, Bangladesh, all our neighbors are greatly placed to poised to get benefit of India's. That is what the development diplomacy would be, which has a technological side to that. So this techno development of a particular country can actually have positive effect on neighbors. Coming back to Vikas, Swarup sir, did you have chances of engaging with people within country or people outside country, and including or integrating or incorporating that suggestion or thing or engagement, saying that okay, this is some very good idea, that why not we talk about it, kind of an engagement with that country or that community? So did you have that kind of engagement, or did you encourage that kind of engagement?
No,
Just
absolutely.
yeah.
I think as Indian diplomats, all of us, when we are posted abroad, one of our key tasks is to acquire best practices from that country. If you are posted, let's say, in Switzerland, and then there's something that is working very well in Switzerland, then immediately we are tasked that please get that thing back.
That normally happens through formal channels, but informal channels as well.
No, even formal and informal. I mean, to give you a very, when the Delta wave struck India,
Yeah.
you know, at that time we had a critical shortage. We did not produce any PPE kits. We had no oxygen concentrators. We had no oxygen tanks. Nothing at all existed in India. Within 48 hours, our embassies were activated that please contact your host governments and start getting these, oxygen concentrators,
facilities,
tanks,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
And the first consignment, I think Italy was the first country, the first consignment landed within 48 hours of the appeal going out.
Yeah.
So this tells you the instantaneousness of the digital age.
Right.
That, your message goes immediately, the response is also immediate, and the delivery is virtually instantaneous.
Right. Thank you so much on that. And coming back to you again, you are a crisis manager, a professional at the global level. You have been a kind of responding to situations, also in the back working with governments. What challenges do you see in future? Now, the one question to all of us, all three of our existing panelists, that with AI becoming instantaneous, giving questions and answers and preparing all that, and also with coming with bigger capacity to transform the entire ecosystem of technology. With that, what kind of challenge that diplomacy will face? And with that, what opportunities are being created?
Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to touch a little bit on this point about experiences. In fact, within the UN system, we always try to bring a best practice from different countries. I will give you two examples here. Lots of things are happening in the field of agriculture, food security in India. In fact, I had several delegation from Nepal coming and visiting and seeing it there. Second, when I was in Zimbabwe, there was this, one of the highest level of HIV/AIDS in that country. So mother-to-child transmission was very high. So we brought the technology from Cuba, and where they had been very successful about this. So a lot of these experience sharing we do across countries. Now, during the whole time of COVID, we used the whole digital platform to work.
Yes.
And that has been a major success. Of course, that's possible where you have phone system and lots of other infrastructure already there. Now, coming to AI, I think AI has a two sides of it. One side is
like any technology.
it's a platform. At the beginning, when the internet began, now with the phone, you can transfer money, receive money instantly, globally. People were worried before, correct? Now you do it very comfortably, instantly.
That creates a lot of cyber attacks and all that.
So there are secure methods, of course. So AI is a tool we have to use. I think if we don't use it, I was hearing debate recently about lots of these newspapers who are not following digital, technology or AI, almost going to be losing their audience, and so adopting that to better market, better suit you, better competition. So these are business opportunities, and these are technologies. So if you don't drive car better, you get into an accident. So you can't blame that there will be an accident and don't drive the car. Correct? Learn to drive the car and drive well, and that's the way to move on.
Thank you. 30 seconds each from our distinguished both ambassadors.
Well, just to say that, I'm a great supporter of technology. Technology is a neutral platform, as Bishow said. How you use it depends on the individuals using it. Some might use it in the right way, some might misuse it, but that doesn't mean that the technology should be abandoned. So you can't throw the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah, I broadly totally agree with what Ambassador Ranjit Ray has just said. AI, of course, has the potential to be the biggest disruptor since the advent of the internet. And it's going to really speed up development. Look at drug discovery. Look at agriculture. Look at weather forecasting. All those things I think are going to be transformed because of the advent of AI. But at the same time, AI will be misused, is already being misused by malicious actors to interfere in elections, to create deepfake videos, where people are talking about something which they have never said. Exactly. ISIS will use AI as well to recruit people. So I think that capacity for evil also has to be factored in whenever we are talking about AI. The capacity for good, the capacity for evil, and that's why the uh, importance of regulating AI, as the EU has just taken the first step. I think responsible, ethical use of AI is going to be the most important.
Thank you so much. That was a fascinating discussion. And I thank three eminent panelists discussing about briefly and touching upon all these issues. And we are running out of time. Yeah.
Yeah, you take 2 minutes. I'll give me 1 minute.
Yeah. Any questions? Anyone has a quick question? Can someone pass on the mic? Yeah. We started a little late, so we should have a little bit of freedom to.
Sirs, my question to you is, Mr. Ambassador and diplomats among you,
Keep it short, sir.
what is your impression of your relationship, India's relationship with this country? You know we are very close in numerous ways. However, what India needs to do to win the trust of Nepali people, I mean, there is always a question, this mild suspicion that Nepalese carry about your interest in this country with respect to hydropower and infrastructure and control in the business that you have done as a country on this small country over the years. What is your response?
Thank you. So, quick response.
Very difficult to give a quick response, but yes, please, I've spoken about this, I've written about this in my book. The entire chapter 1 talks about why there's mistrust and what we need to do to remove this mistrust. Part of it is structural also because of the asymmetry in size, because of the geographical location of Nepal. And that's why there needs to be much greater awareness and understanding. I'm the first person to say that in India, we don't know Nepal so well. And I hasten to add that I suspect the same is true in Nepal. I think Nepal also doesn't know India so well and what's happening in India. And what is it that goes into our minds while we make our policies? So, but one fundamental point I want to say is that India, as a government, as a people, will never ever want to do anything that is detrimental to Nepal, because something that is detrimental to Nepal is going to harm our own interest. So it's not sentimental or emotional. It's a very cold and calculated strategy. So I think on that, I think Nepal should always rest assured. Of course, we are so close, so there are bound to be problems. But every problem also has a solution. So there will be solutions. But
Right.
this process will continue. We will never have a situation where, everything is fine.
Hunky dory.
Yeah. So we manage the relationship in a way. But as I said in the last session, the trajectory is upwards. So we are strengthening. If you look at a situation, at a given point of time, it seems very difficult.
Thank you.
Look at the relationship over a period of time, it's on an upward trajectory.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Just a minute, please. I'd like to call on the stage a former ambassador, Mr. Kanta, to distribute token of love and the letter of appreciation to our special guest. We are in the digital age. We want to learn more about the digital diplomacy, but time doesn't allow us. I'm sorry. Okay. लगतै हामी अर्को सेसनमा जान्छौँ टु द मुन एन्ड ब्याक यो सेसनको नाम नै भेरी एक्साइटिङ छ ताली चाहिँ बजाइदिनुहोस् न So, you have already received it. We heard that. So, sorry. Okay, we will send this in Messenger, WhatsApp, or whenever you are. Thank you for this wonderful time and wonderful insight that we learn a lot. I'd like to our volunteers friends to fix the stage also at the same times. I hope. Can someone take pictures so it will go fast?